The Hague Convention of 1907 had banned the use of chemical weapons in land warfare, but it was disregarded. And in the trenches, thousands of men died an agonizing death. French, British, Germans, Australians, Canadians, New Zealanders. The survivors were scarred for life. In Berlin, Fritz Haber assembled a group of brilliant scientists, several of whom went on to win a Nobel Prize. Their goal? To develop even better chemical weapons and even better protection against them. The British had exactly the same aim. Their eminent chemist, Harold Hartley, researched gas protection for them. These are French chemical warfare scientists. Like Haber, they wore uniforms beneath their lab coats. Their expertise kept the chemical war alive. Everyone participated in the spiraling chemical arms race. Even the United States, which entered the war in 1917 and suffered many gas casualties. Under Amos Fries, chief of the Chemical Warfare Service, the Americans quickly learned how to use gas themselves. The gas tests were much the same everywhere. The two sides competed to develop the best ideas. The chemical industry's own vats already contained the necessary raw materials. They were left over from peacetime, when they were used to make dyes and other everyday products. The chemical companies now used the professor's formulae to convert these materials into poisons for the front. In Germany, Höchst, BASF and Bayer were the big three in this profitable business. They built new factories to supply the army with chemical weapons. These three companies manufactured 2/3 of Germany's lung poisons: chlorine, phosgene and diphosgene. BASF alone produced 1/4 of German chlorine gas, which affected the eyesight. Bayer developed mustard gas and supplied it to the army. If inhaled, it ate away the body's internal organs. External contact dissolved the skin. Höchst specialized in the nose and throat poison Clark, which contained arsenic. It penetrated the best gas masks. In the course of the war, Allied chemical weapons production came to exceed that of the Germans. Hardly anyone protested, let alone put up a fight. In all the belligerent nations, patriotic fervor swept away moral scruples.
I don't believe that my father had any scruples about leading German gas warfare, or gas warfare generally speaking. Fritz Haber believed that science was for the world, whole world in peacetime, but for one's own country, in this case the fatherland, in time of war.
Gas poisoned over 500,000 soldiers on the Western Front alone. On the Eastern Front, it was roughly 475,000. In theory, countries everywhere had agreed not to use chemical weapons. Under the Hague Convention of 1907, they had been banned, and almost everyone had signed the convention. But now, everyone ignored it. In the gas war, the Christian nations practiced an eye for an eye. King George V had no qualms, as his visit to a British gas unit showed. Monarchies and republics all joined in. On the Western Front, gas killed about 20,000 soldiers. On the Eastern Front, almost 3 times as many. An invisible, silent, paralyzing, suffocating death.
The dust of gas had permeated the soil It's chucked into the soil, and when the shell fire hit the soil, it scattered it, and the smell from this native gas, mustard gas, I got a dose of that, and went into hospital for 2 or 3 weeks for bronchitis.
And the dying did not end with the war. Well into peacetime, many men succumbed to the effects of gas.
Les blessures au gaz, ça se traduisait par la destruction des poumons. Et beaucoup de Français, après la guerre, où on croyait qu'ils n'avaient rien souffert, ils ont traîné avec les poumons abîmés. Il était inutile de se plaindre, mais toute leur existence, ils ont souffert.
In military terms, gas was not a success. The German High Command's aim to drive the enemy out of his trenches failed. The chemical weapons did terrify and demoralize the frontline soldiers, but they did not provide a strategic advantage. After April 1915 and the gas inferno at Ypres, all parties to the war amassed chemical warfare agents, unhindered, unchecked and unpunished. Chemical weapons have remained a part of the world's arsenal ever since. Ypres was almost completely destroyed, but the Germans never took the Ypres salient. On the Western Front, trench warfare lasted almost to the end of the war. In 4 years, the lines barely moved. The only thing that changed was the dying in the trenches. The gas made it even dirtier and even more horrific.